And welcome back, everybody, to the Podcaster Nation. That's right. I said welcome back because I know you were just listening to our stuff and you loved it and you wanted to come back for more, and we have a lot more for you. So, welcome back. Folks, this is the podcast that's about podcasters, it's for podcasters, and it's done by podcasters. And you cracked the code. You are correct. Our guest today is a podcaster. Way to go. Excellent work. Folks, this is the place that we come together. We rise up with each other. We help each other to, get better. This is the place where the rising tide raises all ships. And that's what we do here. Folks, we have a great guest on today. I have had the pleasure, the opportunity, the honor of getting to know this guy a little bit prior to today. And his mission that he's on is awesome. I think it is very, very needed. It's a niche that I don't see enough people in. Matter of fact, I think he's the only guy who has this particular slant on it, and I think it's really needed. So I want to bring him on. I want him to tell you everything about what he's doing, and I think you're going to love it. So here we go. Let me just, guy's got a list as long as my arm here. So let me get the book out. All right. This gentleman is the host of the Derelict podcast, which already makes you start to think, well, who am I bringing on? What's this guy going to do? He has written a couple of books. One's The Derelict, Fight, Fail, Find Manhood. The second book, Five Traps Men Face in Divorce and How to Triumph Over Them. Okay, I think, like I said, this is incredibly needed stuff. This gentleman is he's an advocate. He is a financial advisor. He's a father of three. This guy absolutely has a lot going on and a ton to offer. Please welcome to the podcast, Josh Tomeoni. Josh, how you doing, brother?
Thanks, Rory. I'm doing great, man. That was a great introduction. I feel like we should just drop the mic and just be done right now.
That's it,
What
man.
else can I say? What other things can I add? I don't know.
Well, let's see. First, you were a podcast host, right?
Yes, sir.
And you just celebrated a year. Is that what you told me?
I did. Yeah, as of the time of this recording, we're like 14 months in, so I think I'm on episode 61 or 62 or something right now.
Beautiful. Over 60 episodes. So you've been doing it for a minute. I mean, you've passed the first couple milestones.
Yeah, it's been every single week without fail. And then when I first launched, I launched 3 episodes, I believe, day one. So the math doesn't quite math. Like if you look 52 weeks in, it's like episode 54 or 55, something like that, right?
Right.
So yes, it's been every single week. Which, if you look at any of the statistics, I mean, this is maybe encouragement for your viewers and listeners as well. Like some of what happens here is just keep going, just stay consistent because I'm in, I think, the top 5% of podcasts just based on length of time,
Absolutely. I
which
love
is
that part
crazy.
of it. Yeah. I mean, that's a huge accomplishment. People don't realize what a big accomplishment it is. So
It's a
congrats.
lot of work. It's a lot of work for sure. And I really
Well,
enjoy it. And we can talk more about kind of what the podcast is about and everything else. But I'm just, here's what I would encourage everybody. I'll give them a note from Mr. Beast. Okay. So Mr. Beast, the most famous YouTuber of all time. If you don't know who
right.
he is, go to YouTube and type in Mr. Beast and watch any of his videos. And
Right.
whether you love or hate his videos, I have a ton of respect for this guy because he's just a hard worker and he just cuts through things and he just stays consistent. But the reason I'm bringing him up is that when he started, when he was a teenager, posting videos on YouTube, what he has said since in interviews is he said, look, I'm going to be a YouTuber. I'm going to be the most famous YouTuber ever, or I'm going to die trying. And that was his mindset for years with no results. If you look at how many subscribers and views and everything else he had in the first 9 years, it was basically nothing. It took him 9 years to really start making money. Now he's the most successful YouTuber ever. So why do I bring up that story when we're talking about YouTube instead of podcasting? So whether your podcast is on YouTube or not, is irregardless. My point in that story is if you're going to start one, so for anybody that hasn't started one yet, I firmly believe everyone should start a podcast. But when you start it, just give yourself 2 years. Just commit to it. Just say, hey, look, I'm going to do this every week for 2 years and just see what happens. That's going to be more than 100 episodes. And if each of your episodes is, let's say, an hour long, that's 100 hours just on that. And I promise you that after 100 hours, you're going to get better.
I mean, nice. I love the advice right out of the gate. I absolutely love that. So, from someone who has already passed those milestones and is, getting more and more accomplished as we go as a podcaster, I think that's going to ring true for a lot of folks. It's great. Great advice, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah, like it a lot. Um, Now you use this platform for a very particular purpose. You are looking out for men who are going through something that you went through
Hmm.
yourself. You had a pretty rough divorce, yeah?
I did.
That's where most of this comes from.
Yeah. So, I don't get the chance to tell the story of the podcast very often. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of the story here. Okay.
Right on.
And this is specifically for, have you been divorced before, Rory?
I have, yeah.
You have. Okay.
Hmm.
So you relate to this then.
For sure.
So for you and anybody listening, watching, etc., that's been through a divorce or is going through a divorce for that matter, let me just ask you a question. Was your divorce in your top 10 list of most difficult things you've been through in your life?
Yes,
Okay.
for sure.
Was it pretty high on that list or low on that list? I don't
I
know.
would say it's probably top five. Yeah, it was
Okay.
ugly.
Top
It
five.
was awful. My first kid, the whole bit.
So rough, right?
Hmm.
That's everybody's answer. I've never heard anybody answer differently, even in a situation where both people are really getting along. It's still just a rough it's just it is a breaking away of those soul ties. It's a breaking away of a partnership that you thought was going to be there forever. Like none of us go into a marriage thinking I'm going to be in this for a year. Like that's just not how we
Right.
think about it, right? It's like,
Right.
no, no, no. I found my person. I didn't find my person. That's traumatic, no
Yeah.
matter who you are. So why do I say that? Well, I went through that process myself in my mid 30s. And then through that process, I decided, so while I was going through that process and it seemed like it might be headed that way, I was doing everything that I possibly could to save the marriage. Once I realized the marriage was done, which really started with her handing me divorce papers, once I realized the marriage was done, I put all of my healing and everything else on hold. And I just was like, forget it. I don't care anymore. And it was in that moment that I realized that everything I was doing for myself was really for my marriage. Then the marriage imploded, exploded, whatever word you want to use. I then chose to act out, go crazy, go find some new bottoms, go do some exciting things in my mid 30s I never did as a teenager. And I have plenty of stories, and maybe that's for another podcast. Why am I bringing all this up? Why I'm bringing this up is because I've noticed that men going through divorce have similar experiences. Maybe it's not the same as mine, but they try to save the marriage. Once they realize the marriage is done, the marriage is done. Generally speaking, they kind of go off the deep end and go do something, whatever that means. Maybe it's buy a sports car, maybe it's date a bunch of young women, maybe it's just put their head down and go crazy into their work and become a workaholic. Maybe it's, dropping 100 pounds and getting a six pack and so that you look great on Instagram. Whatever it is, it seems like every guy goes through something. What was yours out of curiosity, Rory? Did you have a something that you went through?
I buried myself in work.
There
Yeah,
you go.
I was the work guy, the workaholic. Like, wake up, go to work, stay there, work extra shifts. My shift's over, I'm still there. Don't come
Right.
home till the end of the day because I didn't want to be alone.
Yeah, for sure. And the thing with guys specifically is that guys, well, we all as humans like control, but guys specifically don't feel like they're living in their masculine energy if there's not a sense of power. So here's what I mean by this. A lot of people take the word power the wrong way because power can be used inappropriately, of course.
Of course.
But power in an appropriate sense is what can I control and what within that control can I make happen? So it's no wonder that a lot of guys turn to work.
Right.
Because if there's something in your work that you're good at, that you know I can make happen, I can make money doing, forget everything else. Because my emotional life is a mess right now. My spiritual life is a mess right now. My relational life is a mess right now. My romantic life is a mess right now. I don't have a good relationship with my kids right now. All these other things are going on. What can I control? Well, I'm good at golf. Great. I'm going to go play golf more. I'm good at pool. Great. I'm going to go play pool more. I'm good at this aspect of my work. Great. I'm going to focus on this aspect of work. It's whatever I can feel that I have some power over, right?
Right.
So I'm going to go back to my story. So I went through this phase where I did the same thing, but I went out and I said, okay, I'm going to find some things that I'm good at. Wow, I found out I'm pretty good at flirting with and, connecting with women. So I'm going to go do that. So I tried that one for a while. Then I started a new business, did that for a while. I did all the different things. And then I finally got to a point where everybody gets to as well, hopefully sooner than later. And I'm hoping for everybody listening to this, it's sooner than later, where you realize that whatever you're trying to make fulfill you doesn't fulfill you. So at the end of the day, does me burying my head into work really fulfill me as the most authentic person that I can be? The answer is no. It just isn't. It's just not going to work. Now, can your work be fulfilling? Sure. But is being a workaholic going to really fulfill your authentic self? No. Just like women won't, just like drugs won't, just like fill in the blank won't, right?
Right.
So then men tend to go through this, what I call spiritual awakening. And I'm not sure if you had one or not, but did you ever get to a point when you're so buried in work and everything else where you realize, like, I'm missing something right now?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And at the time, in fairness, looking back, I would consider it a spiritual awakening. At the time, I had no idea that's what was happening, but it was
100%.
all about my kid at that point. Yeah, for sure.
It was all about what? That your kid was getting not the best attention because work was, or what?
Yeah, yes, but what happens is you realize you only have this little bit of time, right?
Right.
And all of a sudden, seeing your kid every single minute of every single day, whenever you want, is gone. And so you're like, okay, well, I'm prioritizing work, but now I need to prioritize my kid,
Right.
especially during these times, because that's all I've got.
Right.
And so that like slaps you right in the face with some cold water that you go, look, I got to be here during, these times, 100% no matter what for that kid, and that's I mean, that's a little bit of a crutch maybe, because it's laid out for you, but by the same token, it's like you got to realize that you can't work through that.
Yeah, sometimes it has to be laid out for you. Like I wish that I would have had somebody like me that was coaching guys through this for sure, because this is what I do now.
Right.
But it didn't really exist. It still doesn't really exist. It's a very, very kind of niched thing, like you said.
Yeah.
But I also agree with you that those spiritual awakenings are usually subtle. Like people don't necessarily call it that when they're going through it. It's just that something shifts. Like you get low enough or you get far enough where you're like, this has got to shift. Like the pain has to be extreme enough or the pleasure has to be extreme enough where you're like, something's got to move here. Something's got to change.
Yeah.
So I got to that point and then I realized like, well, maybe I could actually help other guys with this. Maybe it's not just we when you're going through divorce, you probably realize this too, man. Like you have that time where you have to focus on yourself,
Hmm.
like almost exclusively. Like if I don't focus on myself and become and love myself through this, there's no way I'm ever going to be able to love or accept anybody else ever. So I really have to take some time to figure out who I am and how I can love myself. Now, for me, that just happened to happen at the exact same time as going through like this existential midlife crisis, right? Like it all just kind of came together for me in my mid 30s, which I think is why it happens a lot in midlife because guys are like, who am I? Right? Like how am I living my authentic self right now?
For sure.
So I went through that. There's a long-winded answer to your question, but I'm getting there. After I had already kind of had the spiritual awakening, I was working on myself. It had been a couple years into it. A buddy of mine and I actually just met up and we're having a conversation. We're like, you know what? We both are in business and we both hate it when we go to conferences and people are up there talking about how they just sold their company for $1 billion and how they had a failure once 20 years ago. Like, tell me something that's useful. Tell me something you're struggling with right now. Tell me something that you're failing at right now because failure is not a bad thing. We shame ourselves with failure, but all failure means is that I missed the mark on something. Great. I walk across the room, I stub my toe, that's a failure. Let's embrace the failures because the failures teach us where to go next, right?
Right. Yeah.
So we had this idea. We're like, well, what if we actually just got more honest and authentic and real about our failures on a podcast? What if we just did it together and we just chatted with each other about like, hey, what were your failures this week? And maybe people will relate. That's how the podcast got started. So the reason I chose the word derelict is because derelict means abandoned, thrown aside, forgotten. In nautical terms, it's like a ship that's been, like the Titanic would be a derelict ship, as an example. If you Google the word derelict, you're going to see a bunch of homeless people, a bunch of houses in ruins, a bunch of dilapidated buildings, that sort of thing. So why would I pick that? Why I pick that is because I think that a lot of guys, especially when they're going through transitions like divorce, feel that way. Like no one else understands me. I'm the outcast of society. I've been thrown aside. You know, man, I was the poster child of this, Rory. I'm in my mid 30s. I wear three-piece suits to work to my financial planning firm that I owned, that I had owned for a long time. Now it's been almost 2 decades, but back then a little bit less. In the posh suburb with the best school district, in the really nice house with the nice cars, with the beautiful wife and the three kids. Like I was checkmark all the things. Went to the church that everybody knew, including the city council members. All the city council members knew me. The mayor and I were friends. I was like the guy that would be mayor next. And if I had any desire for politics, would just keep going. There's too many probably bad videos and pictures of me out there for me to do it anymore, but we'll see. I don't think that's ever going to happen. I'm not political enough for that. But the point is that I had that idealized life that you would look at on Instagram and you're like, yeah, that guy's killing it. We traveled all the time. I thought that my wife and I were the ideal couple, that everybody just looked at us and they're like, oh my God, let me just bow to you. Amazing marriage, right? Like I was that guy. Only to find out it was really empty. It was really empty. I I didn't have the relationship that I thought I had with my wife. I didn't have the relationship I thought I had with my kids. So this was really the first time with this podcast of like, man, what if I just need, let's be more honest about it because I know that if I open up and I express failures and problems and things that I'm going through, Rory, if I do that with you right now, you do the same thing for me, right?
Absolutely. 100%.
I found that being authentic, the analogy I like to use is that if I'm living my authentic self, people either love me or they hate me. There's no middle ground. So if I'm at a party
Yeah.
and I decide, hey, I'm going to go jump in the swimming pool naked, there's going to be two reactions from people at the party. What are those two reactions, Rory?
They're
Tell
going
me.
to either love it or hate it.
Right. So the guys and gals that love it are taking off their clothes and they're jumping in the pool naked with me, right?
Right. Yeah.
Or maybe they're not quite that bold and they're just like laughing and having a good time and high-fiving me or whatever, right? And then there's the other ones that are appalled, that are closing their eyes, that are leaving the party, that are literally telling the host, like, I can't believe you would invite that guy. That guy's disgusting, or whatever they need to say, right?
Sure.
But if I'm just a party goer and I'm just there and I'm sipping my drink and I'm talking about the weather and I'm talking about whatever thing is happening in politics and I'm talking about whatever person Kim Kardashian is dating or whoever is important. No one cares. No one's going to remember me. I'm not going to make an impact. And it's just going to be like, oh, yeah, I met him. He's a good guy. This is the last thing I want. I want to be authentically myself. And the authentic Josh is jumping in the pool naked. So I have found that the more I live authentically myself, the more people love me or despise me. And when people are middle ground and like, yeah, that guy's good, he's okay, that means I'm not living authentically myself. So starting the podcast was really that. It was really, can we actually create space for that authenticity? Now, I talked a lot, so I'm going to give you a chance to ask any follow-up questions or anything you want to say before I move on.
Well, I had a follow-up question until we got into the pool naked. Now I'm kind of like, a little bit lost.
Now you're lost. Now you're just imagining me in a pool naked.
You're
Sorry,
killing me. You're
that's a terrible image. I
you're
apologize.
killing me, brother. No, I love actually the way you told the story. Yeah, I do have a question for you. You mentioned that your marriage was not what you thought it was, and that your relationship wasn't what you thought it was. This this caught you by surprise.
It did.
I'm not sure I realized that the last time I talked to you. I mean, and I
Yeah.
knew it was not something that you were in favor of, but I don't think I caught that it was a surprise to you. So was it that you were disconnected in work and you just really didn't know where you were? Or, was there some other thing that was kind of keeping you from knowing like what reality really was?
Uh,
If you don't mind me asking, I mean, you always have the option to
you can
say, hey,
ask
I don't
me
want to
any
talk about
question you want. I'm an open book, brother. What I would say is that here's I think the best way for me to answer this question. Just like the glasses you're wearing right now, we all wear glasses with filters on them,
it.
right? And based on my experiences, how I let those experiences define me, what I've seen myself, I then experience you or experience anyone or experience life through my filters. It's impossible not to. Everyone does it. If anyone thinks, oh man, I'm just disconnected and I can look at anything like the creator of the universe, then you're
You're kidding
crazy.
yourself. Yeah.
You're kidding yourself. So we all have these filters. One of the filters that was very strong and prevalent in my life was that I had a very strong marriage and that people looked up to it because we got along, sex was decent, communication was decent, finances were decent, like we made it work. But what I didn't realize is that the reason it was working is because we were both pretty codependent with each other, specifically me. And all that means is that I did things so that she did things so that I felt a certain way. All codependency means, because it's a phrase that gets thrown around a lot,
Right.
is that I'm trying to manipulate or control your actions so you produce a certain feeling within me. So instead of me validating myself and how I'm doing, I need you to validate it for me. That's codependency.
Hmm.
So if we're in an argument, I'm going to try to get you to calm down, to be happy, to be satisfied, to be okay, irregardless of what my opinions, desires, or anything else are. None of those matter because the only thing that matters is that I get you to a good state so that I can feel good. It's kind of happy wife, happy life sort of thing.
Interesting. And this is the state that you were in. I mean, both of you were in.
It's the state I was in specifically. She was in a bit. She had other things going on, but I'm not gonna down talk her on a podcast.
No, of course
But
not.
yeah, it was very much the state I was in for
Okay.
sure. And you know, at least for me, when I was in that state, I didn't even realize it.
Sure.
I just thought that I was doing things like I had the best intentions, like a lot of us do. Where I was like, you look, I just want us to have a happy life and happy marriage and everything else. And I was going about it completely the wrong way. So really, even starting the podcast was a part of that unveiling of, hey, look, I've been dealing with this stuff now for years and I've been working with guys for years on this stuff. Now maybe I need to actually just start expressing it.
When you started the podcast, I mean, I realized that it was a healing journey for you. And I had this conversation with podcasters a lot about how when we do our own podcasts, it's very therapeutic for us. We
For
can
sure.
kind of work through things, even if we're doing other things like hosting guests. We still are working on ourselves as we go. But when you first started this, were you primarily working on yourself, or did you start the podcast as part of the movement and the new business and, trying to help others? I'm just curious how, like, which got started first and the chicken and the egg
The
type of thing.
podcast was a result of all the health and recovery stuff that I've been doing for years.
Got it.
So, I'd already been on that kind of recovery journey, let's call it, that health journey for, let's see, what year is it? It's 2025. That was 2024. So I had already been on that journey for 6 years when I started the podcast.
Got it.
So it was not like, hey, I'm just going to do this as therapy. I had already had, 5.5 years of therapy or whatever at that point.
Excellent. Okay.
So, uh, but to answer but also to comment on that, I completely agree with you on that. And most people that want to start a podcast or want to continue a podcast, the only reason they don't is because they just get in their own way up here. That's the only thing. Because starting a podcast is extremely easy, especially if you're not going to do video. Video makes it a little bit more complicated because trust me, I started just audio. So if you're going to do just audio, guess what? You can talk into your phone, hit record, hit publish, and it's published.
And
That's
it's
it.
there.
It's
Yeah.
it's literally that simple. You don't even need a program. You don't even need to use Zoom like we're using right now. You don't need to
Yeah.
use Riverside like the one I use. You literally don't need a program. You can just do a voice memo on your phone, record it, upload to Spotify or Apple or wherever you want to upload it, or upload it to a site that uploads it to all of them. And then you got a podcast. Done. Super easy. So no
Right.
excuses if you want to start a podcast. It's really easy. To sustain a podcast, though, you have to really believe in your why, your mission, and why you're doing it. And it has to be about other people. It can't just be about like, I feel better about myself, because that just won't last. You got to be serving somebody. You got to be loving somebody. You got to have somebody in mind that might be able to listen to this. So let me just give you a little bit more of my story, Rory. So we started the podcast, like I said, me and my buddy, with this concept of failure. And it was really an idea of we're just going to be talking about our failures. Ironically, 3 days before we were supposed to launch, or the first episode was getting launched, So I created this podcast studio you're looking at right now in my home in a little secret room. It's kind of cool. If you ever come up here, I'll show you where it is. I made this whole thing 3 days before the first episode was getting launched. It was already scheduled and ready to go. This whole thing flooded, and I had to redo the entire thing that I just did myself. And I'm not a
Ouch.
contractor, man. I just figured it out. I bought this stuff from Amazon and Home Depot and everything else, and I just figured out how to make it. So then it flooded. Like, cool, wonderful. So then I had to deal with that, and then I had a contractor that, of course, was awful. But what ended up happening is both of my water heaters burst. So it just flooded everywhere here into my movie room. It was a whole thing. So then the podcast gets launched. When the podcast gets launched, there was a million issues. Everything audio wise, everything publishing wise, everything went wrong. Just absolutely everything. So if you want to reach out to me and find out all the mistakes I made, please do. I'm happy to chat with you about this. So all the mistakes go wrong. Then we start kind of getting in the groove. I'm like, okay, cool. This is feeling great. 8 episodes in, my buddy quits. He's like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Ouch.
This isn't for me. We're both going through these midlife changes. This is not where I see my life going. Okay. I took a month off of recording. I was already like 2 months ahead of schedule, so that was a good timing. But during that month, I grieved hard. And I was like, wow, why am I grieving this so much? This does not seem like that big of a deal. It's not like somebody died or something. And I realized that I was really attaching my mission and vision onto his. And I was really compromising what I actually wanted to do with the podcast because of the fact that we were in it together. So then I did a podcast, of course, about failing to start a failure podcast, because how would you not do an episode on that?
Right.
So I think it's episode 9, and it's all about failure through grief. And I went through this whole thing. I tried video on that episode. It looks awful. Go check it out. It's terrible. It looks hideous.
Yeah.
It's so bad. It's so bad. The audio is bad. The video is bad. Everything about it's bad. But I did it. And that's the point, right?
Right.
Then I'm going along, and a couple episodes later, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to have my girlfriend on the podcast, because it had been me and my buddy. And then all of a sudden I was like, I'm pretty much doing all the podcasts alone at this point, which is also hard, talking into a mic for an hour by yourself.
Sure.
It's a lot more interactive with another person. Thank you for being interactive right now. So then I was like, I'll do it with my girlfriend. We'll talk about communication, because why not, right? So we did that podcast. I thought it was pretty funny. We enjoyed it and everything else. And then 2 months later, we broke up. And then as we break up, uh, other things go wrong in the podcast. I try to hire an editor. The editor doesn't work out. I try to hire another editor. The editor doesn't work out. I try to help somebody with social media. Also forgot to mention that I had not been on social media for a decade before I started social media for this podcast. So I didn't know the first thing about it anymore. Like the last time I was on it, Facebook, I was like in college, and you could only get Facebook if you were in college. That would have been like 20 years ago now or so.
That was original Facebook.
Original Facebook
Like,
was not what we see today.
no.
And you wouldn't even know that unless you're in college 20 years ago, because the only people that could get on Facebook were in college. So I don't know how many people even know that, but when Zuck started Facebook, he only allowed certain colleges to get on. So you had to be on that list of colleges, and then you had to get an invite from somebody in that college. So I
Right.
was like early adopter of Facebook, like early, 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 early. So I did that for several years. My first son was born. I was like, I don't want my kids' pictures all over the internet. I deleted all my social media. So now, as a 40-year-old, I'm trying to figure out how to use TikTok. Good luck with that one. So go through that whole thing. I basically fail at literally everything that I possibly can. I go through episodes where I record things that are unusable because of bad internet connections or other things that you can't even tell while we're recording. I go through bad cameras. I go through cameras that just shut off halfway through recording. I mean, it's all the things, man. Why do I bring any of this up? Because it took every single one of those failures for me to get realigned with my main mission. So just when we passed a year, I went back and I was like, you know what? I want to listen to the very first recording we did. Because the very first episode that I did was a short episode, and it was just me and my buddy talking while smoking cigars on the back porch of a house we rented with our kids at the beach with shitty audio. And on that podcast, we were basically just saying, hey, what's your idea of the podcast? What's your mission? What's your vision here? My mission and vision hadn't changed. But it wasn't until going back to it to realize like how many times I got distracted by either his mission or vision or what somebody else told me they liked about it or what, just pinging all over the place. And it was a really good reminder just to come back to, no, no, no. What's your intention? Your intention is not to have a failure podcast. Your intention is to help dudes, specifically in the middle of their life, go through and navigate things like divorce, specifically. There are no divorce coaches. I don't understand why. Doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Yeah.
People think I get an attorney and I get a therapist, I'm good to go. Which one of those people are helping you have a vision for the 2.0 version of yourself after you get through divorce? And the answer is neither of them.
Right.
So I wrote a book last year. You already mentioned it. It's called The 5 Traps Men Face in Divorce and How to Triumph Over Them. I'll mention this for your listeners. If anybody is going through divorce or has gone through a divorce, I'm happy to send you a copy of the book for free. Just go to Instagram, follow me on Instagram. I'm Josh the Derelict. Go to Instagram, follow me on Instagram, send me the word ebook, and I'll send it to you. Happy to do that. Or you can go on
Wow.
Amazon and buy it. That'd be even better. But I'm happy to send it to you. It's going to take you a couple clicks of your finger. Josh the Derelict, follow ebook. I'll happy to
Nice.
send it to you.
Thank
But
you
the
for
reason
that.
I wrote
Yeah.
that book, yeah, you're welcome. The reason I wrote that book is because I realized that people don't know what they don't know, right? I've been a financial planner for almost 2 decades now as well, and people just don't know what they don't know. And it's not until you sit with somebody that's like, well, what is keeping you from that next piece? Like for me, when I went through my divorce, I thought my life was over. I needed people to speak into me. They're like, it's not. And I didn't have a lot of those people. So it took me years to figure out, oh, it's not over. I had to go through spiritual awakening after spiritual awakening after spiritual awakening to realize, like, oh, I actually have a better life now. But it took a lot of time to get there. I really wish I would have had a coach during that process myself.
Well, when you and I went through all that, there were no coaches, like you said. I mean, it wasn't even a concept. So, I'm glad that you're able to
Nope.
get the word out now, about what it is you're doing because it is, like I said, it's niche because I've never even heard of anybody besides you doing it, which is great for you.
Yeah, I mean, there's some life coaches that do it because they just help with any transition that people are going through. I don't know of anyone that helps specifically with divorce, though, unless it's on
Yeah.
the financial side. There's some financial people out there that are like financial coaches, but not the ones that are looking at. So, of the traps, um, let's see, I don't think any of them are financial.
None of the traps
No,
are
none of them
financial.
are. So,
That surprises
no.
me.
Do you need to look at finances? Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely you do. And finances are mixed in there. Like the second one is trusting the wrong team. And I talk a lot about who you need on your team during divorce because most people just stop with attorney
Right.
or maybe therapist. They don't think about the financial person. They don't think about the coach. They don't think about the auditors. They don't think about all these other people that might be important for them to be there.
Right.
So finances are built in for sure. And trust me, after being a financial planner for 20 years, I've seen a lot of divorces and go the wrong way, financially speaking. And if you're trusting your attorney, just as a side note, if you're trusting your attorney to figure out finances, you should not do that because attorneys don't know finances. They don't get math. They don't understand taxes. They don't get income. God forbid you're a business owner, you're going to get screwed. So do not trust your attorney when it comes to any of the financial aspects, even things like child support and alimony. Trust me, they cannot calculate it. Judges don't do a good job with it. The court doesn't do a good job with it. You would think this would be something that would be important after I spent multiple six figures on my attorney, but they still don't know how to do it. So
Right.
make sure you have a financial advocate in your corner, whether it's me or somebody else.
See, and you saying that's why when you talk about the traps and how none of the traps are actually financial, that actually surprises me greatly.
Mm,
Because when I
hmm
first heard about what you were doing and I, looked at the books and looked at the book title, Five Traps of, that Men Face in Divorce, I started thinking of all of the financial things that happened.
Mm.
That was almost instant. And I think if I started thinking of my own traps that I know I fell into and issues I had, it's either financial or visitation. That was it, in my mind. And so I'm surprised, really, that there's other traps that are bigger
Yeah,
than that.
yeah, they are, and again, they're kind of built in. I don't want to say that there's no financial aspects within the traps, but
Sure.
I'll give them to you really briefly first. So the first
Right.
one is trigger too soon, and it's really just about it's about not preparing yourself for actually going through the divorce process. So, not having conversations with your spouse, not
Oh,
having
I see.
conversations with other people, not really knowing, like that's even pre-divorce, right? That's
Right.
just because I meet a lot of guys that are like, yeah, I think it's headed towards divorce. Great. Here's some questions to consider. Here's some things to consider. Here, just make sure that you're at least somewhat prepared for this. Because if you're not, you're going to be a nightmare during the next year as you're going through this process. So that's the first one.
Excellent.
Second one is trusting the wrong team. We already talked about that. So
Right.
this is where finances come into play because finances are a really big piece. So you got to have a financial person that helps you with that.
Right.
Number three is tossing self-care aside. So this could be financial, but it's more physical, mental, your emotional health. It's like what you said. I just dug into work and nothing else mattered.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you weren't going to the gym every single day during this time. I'm
No, I mean,
assuming you weren't meditating every single day during this time.
it was really ugly for a little while.
Right.
Yeah.
Fourth one is turning a blind eye to your kids. So it's just not being present with them, right?
Right.
The exact thing you were talking about that was your awakening of realizing, look, if I don't invest in that relationship until they're 18, once they're 18, they're not going to want to invest the relationship back to me.
Right.
And the idea is I invest into them until 18, 18 after they invest back into me. That's the ideal, right? But they're not going to want to do that if I'm not invested into them up to that point. And the fifth one is tanking post relationships post divorce. So that's primarily the relationship with your, ex-spouse or co-parent or whatever you want to call them, and then any romantic relationships moving forward. So are finances baked into that? Yeah, sure, they're baked into all five traps. And
I
if
see what you mean.
people work with me on individual coaching, we're going to talk about those financial traps, but it's not as big of a deal as you might think because of the fact that it's actually much easier. It's more easy to solve than every other trap I just listed. Does that make sense?
It does. And after you've gone over them, what is occurring to me is that all of the different things, it's like if you have someone helping you, then none of those things happen to me. All the little financial things that I
Correct.
was thinking of, none of those things end up happening because you have someone help you.
Because the
So
financial
yeah,
thing might have to do with trap number five. So it might have to do with my ex-spouse or my new romantic partner.
right.
That's full of financial traps just within that trap,
Yeah, it
right?
is.
It could have to do with my kids because I could become Disneyland dad. And every time you come over to my house, there's no rules or responsibilities or anything else because we're just partying the whole time because I want to be the cool dad. Now, that
Right.
that has financial consequences to it.
Sure.
If you're trusting the wrong team and you're letting your attorneys figure out alimony and child support and how to separate your retirement accounts and everything else, you're screwed and you're
Right.
going to lose. So making sure you have a financial person that helps you with every single aspect of that. And then even number one, just thinking about how I'm going to go through this divorce, there's a huge financial component to that. And you can't guess, but it's like hiring a contractor for your house. Whatever you think the estimate is, at least triple it. So if you think you're going to
Right.
spend 50 grand on an attorney, you're spending 150. If you think you're going to spend 10 grand on an attorney, you're spending 30. You just are. So here's another reason why I don't understand why there's not more people in this space, Rory, on the financial component. Because if you come to a guy like me and pay me probably 1/10 or less of what you're paying the attorney, I will save you 6 to 7 tenths of that attorney bill because of the fact that I know what to look for. And I can also take you away from having to bother your attorney with all these things that they're not competent at. So think about it this way. Let's just use the financial component for a moment. Okay. Somebody comes to me and they're like, yeah, help me with the financial component. Great. I can do all this stuff and maybe nail it all out in an hour. And it might take the attorney 20 or 30 or 40 to do the exact same work.
Right.
just because they don't know what they're looking for, which is still amazing to me. After somebody's done thousands of divorces, they don't understand this. There really needs to be like, actually, that's a good idea. I just thought of that on the top of my head. I think I need to create some continuing legal education for the legal community about how to do finances during a divorce. I just thought of that on the spot because I think that would be helpful for them
Wow.
because
All
attorneys
right.
really need to figure this out. It's amazing to me how, again, multiple six figures on a multiple fantastic attorneys that I had through my divorce process, and they still all got it wrong.
I mean, I'm not laughing, about that. It's just that it doesn't make any sense. And you're right. Your attorney is your everything. I mean, you figure once I hired the attorney, I don't need anything else. I'm good to go. And
It's the
that's
same, but it's the same experience people have with therapists too, right? Like, well, I can just take everything to my therapist. Well, can you? Are they actually qualified to help you with everything? Like if you took your taxes to them, they can't do it. So why do you think that you taking your future vision to them is going to work? That's not what they're trained for. They're trained to look at the past. They're trained to help you move past your trauma. They're trained to help you move past limiting mindsets and stuff to bring you to the present. They're not there to help you move into the future. So why would I go to a therapist to say, "Hey, help me move into the future past this divorce?" That's not what they're trained to do.
right.
Nothing wrong with therapists. I saw therapists for years, as I already mentioned. Probably 6 years, I think I saw the guy, and he was amazing.
I'm glad you brought that up, though, because in your coaching, you don't just deal with the process of the divorce and the traps that happen before and during. You're also coaching these guys on life after.
The primary thing, my main goal, even though it's not the title of the book, my main goal is the only reason I focus on the traps, I'll put it this way. The reason I focus on the five traps is because if we can deal with them, the reason we're dealing with them is to give you the best vision for your 2.0 in the future. That's the goal. My goal is to sit with you and say, this is what your life looks like in 5 years. I know that it does. And it's not because I can predict anything. I don't know if you're going to be in a romantic relationship. I don't mean things like that. I don't know what car you're going to be driving. That's not what I mean. What I mean is I know because I'm 5 years ahead of you, or I know because I'm 10 years ahead of you. And I know
Right.
that if you put in the work, here's where you're going to get. And here's how that's going to affect you. And if you don't, and you bury your head in the sand, whether it's in work or women or booze or anything else, you're not going to get there.
Yeah, I like that. That's just another piece of why guys need you, because when we're going through it, and this is something that I really have looked back on. When I went through it, I had zero thought
Mm.
about what was next. I was 100% in the moment. And even when I started thinking about changing work and changing, my workaholic habits and being there more for my daughter, even that wasn't future think. That was not, Rory 2.0. That was still get through the day. A
Yeah, for
fire's
sure.
burning. How do I put it out? That was it. It was all still just action and reaction. And there's no thought because when you're a guy going through this stuff, you don't feel like you have a future.
Absolutely not, man. And there's fires all around you. So your only thought is put out the fire.
Right.
There's nothing wrong. Like I would never shame or blame any guy for that. That's what we all do.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. But as a coach, Rory, I have 3 coaches myself that I'm working with right now. Like I'm not above getting coaching. I have
Right.
coaching so that I can become a better coach, so I can be a better human being, so that somebody else can also call me out of my crap when I'm convincing myself of something because I still do that as a coach. And
Right.
and God forbid you get a coach that won't admit that, fire him immediately. Like you got to have somebody that's going to go through the fire that realizes that they have problems, they're realizing they're screwing up, but they're just a little bit ahead of you. Like all my goal is I just want to be there for the man that I didn't have in their darkest of days, in that dark part, going through that divorce, feeling like their whole life is unraveling. I just want to be there as a beacon of hope, being like, look, I made it through. And if this derelict can make it through, you definitely can.
This derelict as opposed to the other derelict over
Oh,
there.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm only looking for derelicts. If you got your stuff put together, don't call me. Not interested.
Nice. Well, yeah, I definitely was not the guy who had his stuff put together, man. I was hanging on by a thread.
Dude, I'm still not
But
the guy who has his life put together. I mean, you just mentioned all these accolades and everything else, right? Like I have so many designations after my name, and I've written a couple books, and I have a podcast, and I've been successful in my companies and everything else, and all of that is crap compared to the fact of how much I don't have my life together. Like I'm figuring things out still all the time at 41 years old, and I'm all good with that. Maybe once I get into my later 40s, I'll figure it out. I don't know, but that's a really exciting and fun place to be. Not always, sometimes it's stressful as hell, but usually it's a very exciting place to be because when there's confusion, it means that there's a breakthrough just on the other side of that confusion. All you got to do is you just got to persist through it.
yeah, I may have said this before, but I think it's another reason why guys need to hire you, is because you've been there. You're legit. You're the real deal. You're not just sitting here talking about, hey, I took this course and I read this book, and philosophically speaking, this is what's going to happen. You're like, man, I have the scar, and
For
it
sure.
really hasn't even healed over all the way yet, you know?
I love telling my financial clients about my financial mishaps because how am I supposed to help you have success in your financial life if I've never experienced any failure? I don't know what to tell you to look out for.
Right.
Same way, like, would you hire a divorce coach that's never been divorced? That's insane.
No.
Like when we were going through the process, um, I'll put it this way so I don't throw anyone on the bus here. No, you know what? I'm going to do it anyway. So I remember when we were going through our divorce, my wife at the time had an individual therapist. I had an individual therapist, and we had a marriage therapist because we were supposedly working on things, which is a whole nother story. Her individual therapist was divorced. And that's okay. I'm divorced. I'm not saying don't get coaching from a divorced person. However, the whole purpose of her going there was to help with marriage. So I don't know. Is that the best like maybe like who's the best person to get relationship from advice from? A married person or a divorced person? Well, here's what I'd say. I'd say it depends. Because some people are like, well, why would I ever come to you for advice? You're a divorced guy who can't keep a relationship, who's failed at every single relationship. I was like, yeah, that's exactly why you come to me. I literally know all of the landmines to jump into. Like I know all of them. Is the marriage person that person? Maybe. If they've gone through all the landmines and they're still together and they have a happy, fulfilled marriage, hell yeah, I'm listening to that person. But am I listening to them just because of the fact that they've been married for 30 years if they're miserable and don't have a fulfilling life? No. So it's not about the person, but the person she was saying was this kind of divorced, bitter, like men are evil type of person. I'm like, well, cool. We all know how this is going to turn out.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have a shot.
That's a really good point. It really does depend on exactly what you're trying to get out of the therapist or out of the professional in that spot. If you're trying to put together a marriage or keep a marriage together, then you want to talk to somebody who's been successful at keeping a marriage together. So I
Right.
think it's totally fair. Totally
Or,
fair.
again, if you're talking to a divorce coach, talk about somebody who's been through divorce and is better on the other side and is now is helping other people. Don't
Right.
talk about the person that's bitter that says all men are or all women are. Feel free to look at any of my social media posts, and especially the ones that have higher views. You will see so many comments of people saying all men are or all women are. If your mindset is that all men are something or all women are something, you're going to believe that no matter who you meet and no
Right.
matter who they are and no matter what they do. And that is not the type of coaching that you want.
Right. No,
Like I'm a divorced guy who helps divorcing men, who helps divorced men, who is a divorce coach, who strongly believes in partnerships and marriage. I'm not cynical. I'm not telling everybody, yeah, you should all get divorced, all live by yourself, all get a robot girlfriend. Like, no, I'm not saying those things.
I don't think we're there yet.
Oh, we're there, just very selectively right now.
Oh God, another whole podcast topic.
Yeah, I was watching Gary Vee talk about this the other day, and he did this. For those that don't know, Gary Vee is just a very, very popular marketing guy, and has a lot of very successful businesses that a lot of people don't know. And he was doing this interview the other day, and he basically looked out of the crowd and he said, it was a live interview, and he said, uh, I don't remember what percentage he said, but he said, there's a good majority percentage of you that your grandkids will be dating a robot or will get married to a robot. And you could hear a pin drop. And I think he's accurate.
He probably is. I mean, given that setup and that time frame, unfortunately probably is. And the really bad part is that Gary Vee is not usually wrong.
No.
He's
Yeah,
been
he's
doing
right
this
about a
for
lot of these things.
decades,
Yeah.
calling it.
Which then brings back to kind of like coaching and everything else. Like I had a financial client ask me the other day, like, what do you think about, like AI and robo advisors taking over basically your job? I was like, I'm not worried about it at all because of the fact that I know what value I add, just like with coaching.
Yeah.
So, here's the way to think about it. If you connect with another man on a personal level and there's somebody that you can actually open up to and that you can actually share things with, which is rare for men because it's difficult for men to do that. And if you get that guy in your life, I promise you there's no robot that could replace that. I promise you. It's not possible. They don't have the emotions and everything else to be able to do that. I use ChatGPT and other AI every single day of my life. I use it all the time. And I promise you that they can't replace that. That's why things like coaches, podcasters, et cetera, are never going to go away because there's certain emotions and everything else that we feel as the human experience that's never going to disappear. So it's not a threat, it's a benefit.
Hmm.
Now, that being said, there's a lot of podcasts out there right now that are literally just robot voices
Yeah.
that aren't a real person. There's a really popular podcast, and I can't remember the name of it right now. It's Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it's called like the Power Podcast or something like that. It's 100% AI generated his voice. And most people don't know that. Most people listen to it and they think it's Arnold talking. Not. He hasn't said one word on the podcast. He hasn't done anything with it. All they've done is taken previous Arnold stuff and they've thrown it in there with his voice and it's him talking and it sounds exactly like him.
See, that's just horrifying to me. That whole thing is horrifying to me.
I think it's exciting because what is that doing for Arnold? That's putting money in his pocket with him doing no work, with him hiring somebody just to basically pull this stuff in, and he's still getting his message out, and people are still getting supported, and they're still getting good advice, right? Like from what he's saying. So there's no downside here either. I don't see downside.
Let's agree to disagree on the whole AI thing.
Okay. Well, here's the deal, Rory. It's coming. I mean, it's here.
I know.
And if you don't jump on board, I promise you there's going to be a day where you're going to kick yourself.
I hear you. I hear you. I'm just going to be one of the slowest guys to get on that train. That's all.
Yeah. Go for it.
But I hear you loud and clear. Unfortunately, like I said, I think Gary's probably right. But back to you and your podcast and you on this episode. All right. Um, you, the podcast is a pretty effective way then for you to kind of get the word out, it seems like.
Is that a question?
Yes, that's the question.
Uh, Help me with the question to try to figure out how I want to answer it. Like, what's the purpose of the question? Because I feel like you're asking it for your listeners to have a takeaway. What's the takeaway that you want?
I don't have a design takeaway. What I'm
Okay.
looking for is you've chosen podcasting, right, as a medium to get your word out. You do books, and then you also do podcasting. You're also on social media. So let's put it this way. I'll clear up the question. How has podcasting helped you get the message out there
Okay.
that
Good
other
question.
avenues maybe can't get it out there for?
So here's what I found with podcasting. When I started the podcast, I wasn't on social media. I hadn't written a book, and I hadn't done, a lot of these other things. Okay.
Okay.
So it was the first thing. Why did I choose podcast? I don't know, because my buddy and I wanted to talk to each other. And we're like, well, podcast makes sense, right? And we weren't going to do video at first. It was just audio. So we're like, yeah, that's an easy way to do it. It's the modern radio. Why not do that, right?
Right.
And I had done a radio show back in the day. So, well, I was like, let's do that. Here's what I found. Not only have there been a lot of iterations of this podcast, and it's changed dramatically since I launched it, and I've kept every single video and audio up there. So if anybody wants to have fun, go look at one from a year ago versus the one compared to today, and you'll see how terrible it was and how much better it's gotten. So I'm never going to take that stuff down because I love seeing progress.
Yeah.
You just do the same thing with Mr. Beast videos or Gary Vee videos from, a decade ago. You're going to see a huge difference, right? So I originally thought that, yeah, that was going to be my primary way to get my message out there. I realized pretty quickly that if I really want to get the message out there, it's social media, it's not the podcast, because it is technically free and much more simple to get my message out to a much bigger audience on social media than it is on my podcast. So I still get a lot more views and interactions on social media than I do my own podcast episode. I think
Sure.
that's pretty consistent from people that I've talked to.
Sure.
So why do the podcast? Well, one of the things that I've learned, especially in this last year, is that social media is really more about capturing content than creating it. So a lot of people create it, but in my space, in the coaching space, podcast space, etc., it's really more about capturing what you're already doing. So what I've learned is I just need to capture more of the things that I'm doing versus just try to go out there and feel like I need to be an actor with all these scenes and everything else. One great way of capturing content is what we're doing right now. I asked you before on the other one, and I'll ask you on this one as well if you can send me the recording, because then I have a recording of myself. I'm looking at you right now with this camera. I'm using this professional microphone, and then right over there, I have another side camera. So I have two different shots of the entire thing, and then I can send that to my editors. They can clip it out and they can make it into social media clips. Those social media clips actually are going to get my message out better than the podcast. So why do the podcast? Well, the reason I host my podcast, the reason I'm on your podcast is for that reason. Because now, if I'm interviewing somebody for an hour, they're going to say gold that I can use on social media that's going to help their message get out. It's going to help the message I want to help. It's going to reach the people that I want to reach. Then they're going to get the coaching and the whole thing cycles, right?
Nice.
So why podcasting? I would say it's really more about media. Like the world today, and I am not a marketer or advertiser by nature. Trust me, I'm not. This has been a hard road to haul to try to figure this stuff out, and I'm still trying to figure it out. And the best way to get your message out there is to build your own personal brand on social media. And you can technically do that for free, or you can pay to do it. So I'm doing it through the podcast. The podcast also forces me to have content because I committed when I did that podcast. I'm going to do 3 to 5 reels a week from that podcast with shorts, plus the episode, plus any additional things that I want to do. So that already keeps me to a timeline and it keeps me to, no, no, you got to do this. Like it comes out this week. I'm not going to do a clip about the episode that comes out this week, 3 weeks from now. That wouldn't make any sense. So I have to get it out this week,
Right.
which can
Nice.
be very stressful, but also really helpful because it puts you on target.
Do you find that it brings you any additional credibility?
What, having a podcast?
Hmm. And being able to put your thoughts and your beliefs and that kind of thing out there.
Yeah, I definitely think so because I think a lot of people, especially people that know me, but other people online as well, like they're more, when they ask me how things are going, they generally tend to ask, how's the podcast? They generally don't tend to ask, how's social media?
Mhm.
So like the podcast is the framing. It would be like, if I had a TV show, like how's the TV show going? It's the same concept. Well, I mean, it basically is a TV show.
Sure.
Like we're all just creating TV shows, right?
Good point.
They just look different.
Good point. I usually ask, in the interest of time, I usually ask a corny question on this, and that is just, in terms of doing your podcast and how it relates to the rest of your business. What's the thing about doing it that you like, that you love the most, and what's the thing about it that you just really can't stand?
What I love the most is easy, and that is speaking with people, whether I'm the guest or the host. So you would be included in this. Speaking with people that I really connect with and that I vibe with, that are supportive of the mission that I'm on. So when I have people on my podcast, it's exclusively people that want to speak to that middle-aged, divorcing man that is figuring out who they are and trying to become the most authentic masculine version of themselves. They have to fit that category. If they're on there to talk about anything else, I'm not interested. I get inquiries all the time of people that I deny to come on the podcast. And I'm not even that big of a podcast. So I can't even imagine what that's like if you had like millions of viewers. I don't. So there's always people that want to be on. Finding people to come on is not difficult. That's one thing I had to learn the hard way is that you got to be selective. If you listen to some of the early on episodes, some of those episodes I'd probably take down if I really listened to my shame cycle about it, but I'm not going to. So yeah, just great conversations, but most importantly with people that are going to help the message get out there to these men that are really having a hard time, man. You're really having a hard time. Midlife is not easy for a man. And we're not allowed to say that in society because it's not a woman, it's not a minority. But it's really not. It's really not easy
Yeah.
for a man midlife. That's why so many of themselves end their lives, as an example. Highest suicide rate is
Right.
35 to 50-year-old men when they're supposed to be at the peak of their life. So if I can get to them and I can get that message out, that's the favorite thing. So uh, least favorite, I'll be much more succinct in my answer. Anything to do with production, I hate. I hate it. I've done all of it. I've done editing before. I learned how to video edit. I've learned how to audio edit. Am I good at it? No, obviously, but I know how to do it. If I need to edit an episode and the shorts and everything else, I can do it. It'll take me a few hours. I'll get it done. I don't need to hand it off. Doing the social media management, doing anything that doesn't have to do with me actually connecting with another human being. Anything on the administrative side is not my gifting, and I absolutely despise it and I hate it. And I found most podcasters are the same. The reason they're wanting to podcast is because they have a voice and they want to communicate and they want to do these things. They're not necessarily great at all the, organizing administrative piece.
Right.
So thank God I have people that, do most of that for me right now. But I still do some of it myself. And again, for anybody that's listening that you're still doing it all yourself, I'm going to go back to that Gary Vee, same interview. Gary Vee said for the first 7 years, when he posted every single day for 7 years, he did everything himself. No one helped him edit. No one helped him script. No one helped him film. No one helped him put it on social media. No one did any of that. He did it by himself for 7 years. So don't make the excuse, oh, I can't do it. I don't have enough time or money or energy or people. You can do it.
Right on. Just throw that gauntlet right down there, man. I love it. That's great.
Man, it's an excuse I use myself all the time. Like, trust me, when I went through, after I made it a year, I was like, do I want to keep doing this? Like, this is a lot of work. And it just went back to that mission. My answer is yes, because I know who I'm trying to serve. I know who I'm trying to speak to, and I know how I'm trying to help that. And that's what it's got to be about. Otherwise, you're not, it's not going to work.
Right. I got you. People hear you today. They say, you know what? He's right. I'm going through divorce. I need a coach. How do they reach you, brother?
Sure. Best way is Instagram. Just reach out to me on there. It's Josh the Derelict,
Yep.
Derelict. So here's what I'd ask you to do. Go to Instagram, follow me, Josh the Derelict, and then send me a message. I respond to all my messages still myself. If you're going through divorce or you've been through divorce recently, send me the word ebook and I'll send you the divorce book for free. Happy to do that as a thank you to Rory for having me on the podcast. So just send me the word ebook. You got to follow me though, right? Like
Right.
social media is for following and connecting. So you got to follow me and send me that message. If you want anything else and you just have a question about all my failures as a podcast host or anything else, just send me whatever message you want. I'll respond.
Okay. Wonderful. Last question, and you've given a ton of advice today. So if you want to like restate something, and pound it home a little further, feel free. But best piece of advice to somebody who's a podcaster out there, and they're just not quite where you are in the podcasting process. Best piece of advice to them.
Just start, just go, just whatever your next step is, just do it because you're going to do it wrong. You are. Just own it. It's okay. Just you're going to do it wrong. You're going to have crappy audio. You're going to have video that doesn't sync up. You're going to have a recording that you can't even use because it's unhearable to the human ear. Like it doesn't matter. Just do it. Just sit down with a microphone and just talk. Just get used to speaking into a camera. Get used to speaking into a microphone. One of the things that I have a commitment to do is that every single day I post on my stories on Instagram specifically, because it's just practice speaking into the camera. And a lot of the days I don't feel like I have anything to say. And I'll get on there and be like, I don't feel like I have anything to say, but here's a thought that I have. And then you just talk. And the more you do that, the more comfortable you get doing that. You think actors just get up there and just act and they don't ever practice and they don't ever look at themselves in the mirror while they're talking and doing everything else? Of course they do.
Right.
The best ones, especially. So just it's the 10,000 hours. It's putting in the reps. You just got to do it. Just do it.
Awesome.
And it's okay if it doesn't work. It'll get better.
Great advice, man. Love it. All the stuff you've given everybody today has been just gold. Appreciate it so very much. Loved having you on. Great talking to you again. I am definitely someone who is a supporter. I love what you're doing. I really do.
Thanks,
And,
Roy.
and
Appreciate it,
I
man.
hope that any guy out there going through a divorce, has the wherewithal to say, maybe I need some extra help here and
Mm.
reaches out and brings you in because, man, it's needed. It's very needed. Folks, helping men reclaim their purpose, power, and brotherhood after divorce. Podcast host of the Derelict podcast, author of 2 books, father of 3, Josh Tomeoni. Josh, thanks for being here today, brother. I appreciate you so much, and thanks for
Thank
coming
you,
on.
Roy. Appreciate you.
Thanks, man. Folks, this has been another episode of the Podcaster Nation. This is the place that is about podcasters. It's for podcasters, and it's done by podcasters. This is truly the place where the rising tide raises all ships. So keep sailing.